Good morning to all of us. Morning. Yeah, welcome. Today we will be discussing on the heart and its vessels. So it's a very important topic, especially in regards to our health. So wale wanaingia, hakikisha you're not dragging the chairs because it will be captured. So as you come in, ensure you're not dragging chairs. So as I was saying, we are going to discuss a very important area in our body called the heart. And you cannot talk about the heart unless you're also talking about the circulatory system, how blood is supplied through the entire body, through what we call the vessels. But there is something else, maybe you've not been taught in high school biology, that blood vessels also need to be supplied with other blood vessels. Are we together? So we have special major arteries that need what we call the vessel of the vessel. In Latin, it's called the vasa vasorum. So there are certain characteristics of large blood vessels that if they were not supplied by other vessels, they would die. And some of these problems, if they happen to these vessels, mainly it's because of the vessel that supplies the vessel. Interesting, So we say they are vasa vasorum. They need another vessel. Now, when we talk about the heart, what do we actually mean? How many areas have you been told that they are also named as heart? Unaposema moyo wangu unapiga, unamaanisha nini? Unaposema umeniumiza moyo, unamaanisha nini? Akili hilo jambo limeniumiza moyo. Do you mean the heart? Or do you mean somewhere else, which we call the seat of emotions? Anyway, there are Bible verses here, and tell me which heart is being referred to here. In Matthew 22, verse 37, it says, Jesus said to him, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart." Which heart did he mean? The one that pumps blood. Ama your emotions. Emotions, Wonderful. So with all your heart, with all thy soul, and which is the soul? What do we call the soul? It's the living person. You, your body, and your personality is what we call the soul. Are we together? So it should be different from your emotions. Your soul is your person. And then the mind. Which is the mind? Your seat of reasoning, where you have your judgment. So Proverbs 4:23, keep thy heart with all diligence, because out of it are the issues of life. Which heart is being referred to here? Where we have the issues of life. It is a seat of emotions. That is the area that is affected by addiction. So that is the area that have been making you to want to have an eye open of alcohol every morning. It is the area affected by emotions. Now, if you damage that area with substances, you're going to affect what we call your life. Because that is the source of the energy that drives you. In other words, you are killing your person by damaging that area we call the heart. Now, Proverbs 14:30, a sound heart is the life of the flesh. Which heart is being referred to here? A sound heart. The seat of emotion, isn't it? Emotion means energy in motion, emotion. How long you're going to survive, how able you can fight diseases, how long you can endure depends on how much energy you have. And this is also dependent on your emotions, which is the seat of electrical energy. Imagine that is the same area you want to damage with drugs. So you're depriving yourself of energy to survive. Na ukiangalia vile uchumi iko, hutaenda bad. Why? Because you have been surrounded by so many challenges. Unalipa ushuru, mke anakungojea nyumbani, school fees ndizo hizo, sawa sawa. Employer ndiye huyo, you have to attend work at certain designated times. And at the end of the day, 70% of your energy goes to taxes. So whatever you use to compensate for all losses is 30%. So this means that there is no equilibrium in energy input and output. So this is how we are reducing our lifespans. So now I want you to imagine that you're wasting energy using substances. What will happen? You'll not go far. Okay? It is a rule in nature. It is a physical constant. You won't go far. Why? The energy you are expending is more than that which you're able to compensate. Sasa. Kwa hivyo ukipata 200, 100 umekunywa. Hii 100 imebaki, part of it utoe ushuru. Niambie utakula nini? Sawa sawa. Are you going to restore the energy you applied in getting that money? And you have wasted part of it. So that is why we want to be very keen. Proverbs 17:22. By the way, if you have, we are told, if you have envy, any emotion that is negative, anger, panic, frustrations, okay, anxiety, depression, stress, all these emotions take away energy from you. So that is why we need to know how to manage our stress. So it will cause rottenness of the bones. And this is an extreme because the bone is the hardest material in the body. So if you lose bone mass because of envy, anger, and this will happen, then you can tell me where the heart is, the kidneys, the liver, okay? They'll be much more affected. So a merry heart, somebody who is happy, joyful, joy and hope and all these positive emotions are like medicine to your body. That is why you might have the energy, everything to do a task. But if the heart is not willing, you'll not be able to do that task. That is how important emotions are. Energy, emotion. Lastly, we are told in Exodus 28:29, and Aaron shall bear the name of the children of Israel in the breastplate of judgment upon his heart. Breastplate upon his heart. So the Bible confirms that where you have the breast is the place you can trace your heart to. So you will find the word heart being used interchangeably to mean the seat of emotions, at the same time to mean this structure inside your chest that helps in blood flow. Today we'll be debunking some of the myths you've been taught as to what the heart is. You've always known the heart is a pump, but today you're going to confirm it's not a pump. Okay? And this is what we were taught in high school. Now, I want you to watch this video, and after watching it, I'll ask you questions, so be very keen. I do not have enough volume. Sorry. I don't have enough sound. So are you able to see anything? So this is where the heart is. Now this is what we call a beat. Okay? So whatever you're seeing, it's a beat. And you have all those blood vessels coming out of it. Now this is called the left ventricle, this is called the right ventricle, okay? Or the right side of the heart, okay? You know this side receives blood that is not properly oxygenated. Not deoxygenated, it's not properly oxygenated. And then pushes it to the lungs, okay, through what we call the pulmonary artery. Now, this kind of behavior is what we call fibrillation. It is called a cardiac arrest, okay? Now, the heart should not beat like this. This is just too fast, okay? Meaning there's a problem. We'll be discussing later what these problems are, okay? So after blood has been pumped all the way to the lungs, it is going to come back through this area we call the left atrium via a vessel we call the pulmonary vein, okay? All arteries carry oxygenated blood, true or false? Huh? All arteries carry oxygenated blood, false. I agree with you. Which artery carries deoxygenated blood? Pulmonary artery, isn't it? So there's only one vein that carries oxygenated blood. Which one is that? Pulmonary vein, huh? Now let's go to the anatomy. Now, the cardiovascular system, which is also called the circulatory system, has a vast network of vessels composed of the heart, and the heart is a large blood vessel. You come to confirm that. The heart is a large blood vessel, but it is modified in a way to give the flow of blood energy to be able to circulate. And then we have the network of blood vessels and the blood. So the blood vessels, including the heart, is what we call the circulatory system. Now, the primary function of the heart is to transport oxygen. This is what you're taught. But this is not all of the gases we know the heart transports. It also transports carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and other trace gases, which are equally important for your survival. Let me tell you, if you do not have carbon dioxide, you cannot breathe. Mtu akienda theater anawekwa into a coma, si ndio? Ili afanywe upasuaji. Kuna mtu ashaifanywa upasuaji hapa? Inua mkono. Hakuna mtu ashaifanywa upasuaji. Sawa. So if you're put into a coma, you cannot breathe. So you're going to die. The reason you don't die is because they give you what we call a life support machine to help you in breathing. But then at the end of that procedure, they need to reinstate your breathing and your breathing function. You know what they do? They have to give you carbon dioxide because that is the one that is going to stimulate your breathing again. And now you become independent, you're able to breathe on yourself. Meaning all gases are important. Okay? And they are as important as they are proportioned in the atmosphere. We have oxygen 23%, nitrogen how much? What is the composition of nitrogen in the atmosphere? 78%. Carbon dioxide is less than 1%. Plus the other trace gases. They are all transported by blood and they are very important. Okay. Then we have nutrients, we have hormones. These are messengers to cells through the body. Now, this is what you have been taught for so many years, that the heart is myogenic, meaning to start a heartbeat, you do not need the brain. But the truth is, the heart is connected to the brain through what we call the nervous system, and the brain controls the heart as well as the rest of the organs. Okay. So there is what we call a heartbeat that originates on the right side of your heart, where we have the atrium, and then moves through the system. And the position where the heartbeat starts is called the sinoatrial node, SAN for sun. So if you have a problem with that area where your heartbeat starts, your heart rate is going to go down. Now, if your heart rate goes down, this would mean you need to be assisted because you'll not be able to endure activities. You'll not be able to exercise. You'll not be able to run because the heartbeat is too low. So those are the people you find they have a gadget in their chest. It's called a pacemaker. Ushaisikia kuhusu pacemaker? Inamsaidia kuongeza nini? The heart rate. Okay? So, what is the normal heart rate? 72 beats per minute. But that's not normal. That's the average after doing so many heart rates of people. If you can work with a heart rate of less than 70, your heart rate is nzuri sana. If you get the heart rate of athletes, watu kama hawa huwa wanakimbia, uchukue tu heart rate yake, utakuta iko between 30 to 40. Is he sick? Unafikiria ni mgonjwa? Heart rate iko between 30 to 40. But he is very strong. If you get such a heart rate and you're not an athlete, you'll be admitted. Are you together? You'll not be able to cope up with exercise. Okay? Good. So the heart has what we call a nervous system. It has both the sympathetic nervous system. So when your heart is failing, when your heart is not able to do its work, then the brain sends what we call sympathizing messengers that travel through what we call the sympathetic nerves to try to quicken your heart or to help it beat faster. Because the most important work of the heart is to ensure that you are not going to be deficient no part of your body, including the fingertips and the toe tips, is going to miss nutrients, not only oxygen, the gases, hormones, because your heart is not able to allow blood to flow properly. Okay? But the most important part of this system is called the parasympathetic nervous system. Sasa wacha niwaone wanaume. Ukienda kinyozi, unaweza gharamia kinyozi ile ya pesa nyingi. So there's a lady or whoever that is will come to massage you. Tell them not to touch this area. Tuko pamoja? Not to touch. Alafu wasiguse wapi? Then utazimika bana. Your heart can stop. There is a nerve here that goes down. By the way, the neck is not supposed to be massaged. Mwambie acheze na kichwa, lakini hapa sasa, because the sympathetic nervous system parasympathetic travels through this area. And if you stimulate it, your heartbeat can go low and low and low until you stop. Okay? Tuko pamoja? Are we together? Yes. And we give the same instruction to men, especially those who have suffered a heart attack during orgasm. You are at the climax of the moment. And then you know what happens? You have activated what we call the parasympathetic nervous system. Alafu mtu anakugonga kwa mgongo. Wewe unaenda tu. So you have to protect your back. You have to keep your back safe. Tuko pamoja? Yes. And that is because of the parasympathetic nervous system. You've heard of politicians who died in the very act. Maybe hujaijiuliza mbona walikufa, eh? Anyway, so parasympathetic nervous system, very important. Now, what I would like to say about the nervous system of the heart is that it is also joined or connected to your stomach. The lungs and the heart and the stomach share this autonomic nervous system. What does that mean? Somebody who eats food to the maximum, unakula unashiba, you cannot go far. Kwani mumejuana? Wendi bali, sawa sawa. Because you are stressing your heart by reducing the tone of the parasympathetic, which is supposed to be the curing system of the heart, and you are activating what we call the sympathetic. Kwa hivyo usione mambo ya kula kushiba kama ni kitu sasa, sio kitu cha kuchezea, unajiangamiza wewe mwenyewe. So we don't eat to fill our stomachs. You must always leave an allowance. And that is why I say, if you know that you get full after clearing a plate of food, ensure that a quarter of that food is spared for the sake of your lifespan. So, otherwise, utaenda bad. And those are the facts. And you need to know them. Now, the blood supply of the heart. There are two major arteries that supply the heart of blood. And it's simple to know them. One is in the right, the other one is left, right. Sasa. Now, these blood vessels are special in some way because they are supplying the most active muscle of your body. And I'll be telling you something about why these blood vessels need to be guarded jealously. I'll tell you why these blood vessels have made people who have diabetes to suffer heart problems because of damages that occur to these blood vessels. So they are here. So we have the left main coronary artery, we have the right, and please look at the position of the heart. What shape is that? There is no known shape of the shapes that you have been taught that can match the heart. In fact, science says that the top side is the base. It is not. The heart rests on the diaphragm and on your stomach on this side, and it protrudes towards the left side. Kwa hivyo moyo wako umekaa hivi. By the way, the organ I'm talking about, just hold your fist. Hold your fist. So that is the size of your heart. Hiyo kitu. So that is the size of your heart. And it stays in this position. Okay? So it narrows towards the left side. So your main heartbeat is towards the left. Are we together? So we have the right coronary artery on this side and the left on that side. So any problem with the most affected area of the heart is here, where we have the ending point of those major vessels. Okay? Now this position tells you something, because the heart beats from this point, yet it is the narrowest. Then I'll be proving to you this area, given the small cross-section surface, is not adequate to pump blood to all the organs, including another organ 10 times larger than the heart itself, like the liver. Are we together? So there must be another mechanism the heart uses to cause the blood to flow, which is not a pump. So we are talking of blood vessels which are more than these. This is just an artist's impression of the blood vessels. But let me tell you, there are many more blood vessels. If you are to join all these blood vessels end to end, all of them, they could move around the earth, along the equator where we have the widest circumference, 2.5 times. Exactly. So you're going to tell me the diameter of the earth at the equator, and then you multiply by 2.5. That is the extent of the distance of your blood vessels joined end to end. So this means what? There is no way you ever convince me, because I'm not a dunderhead, that this cross-section area is able to pump blood through all those kilometers of distance. That is not possible. So there's another mechanism you are not taught in high school. And that one I'll be willing to teach. You'll be very happy. It's a new thing. If you've never heard it, you'll be hearing it for the first time. Okay? If you be attentive. Okay, the role of blood. What are the functions of blood? Na musikae kama hamuna damu. Si mko nayo? So what is the function of blood? So many functions. Medium for chemical reactions, transport, temperature, carriage, medium. What else does it do? Carrying of nutrients. Immune system is also contained in the blood. So many things, okay? So there are many more functions of the blood. By the blood is denser than water, okay? Blood is denser than water. So that does not mean that, I'm not talking about love, okay? Unajua watu kusema damu ni nzito kuliko, wakimaanisha ya kwamba watu ambao wako pamoja wamezaliwa pamoja wanapenda. No, that is not what I mean. I mean density. What we call the physical variable we call density. Ukicompare na maji, if you are to put something in blood, it will be more difficult to sink than if you put it in water. Sawa. Because of the other contents that the blood has. Okay? So many of them. But then, we need to be careful not to allow that density to increase, because that will hinder blood. So utakuja hapo ukiniambia uko na varicose vein, mtu ako na clot, mtu anaumwa na kichwa, because the density is more than it's supposed to be. Now, your heart started to beat when you're 70 days old in your mother's womb. 70 days old. And your heart is going to sustain you. It will continue to beat to help you to survive for as long as you will live. I don't know how long you're going to live, but the lifespan in Kenya is between 50 to 60 years. But if you have good lifestyle habits, you're not depleting your energy with substances. You are eating well, you are exercising. You have a healthy emotional atmosphere of joy, gratitude, appreciation, peace, forgiving others. Then you can live longer. So you can live longer. But kama wewe ni mtu wa kuchukia wengine, anger, you don't forgive. So now that is going to affect your lifespan. Okay? Yes. So the heart starts as a blood vessel. That is why I said the heart, it's a modified blood vessel. And those modifications will assist your body to have energy, and you allow your blood also to flow in the manner that it flows today. Okay? So that is how amazing your heart is. Now, is the heart a pump? Let me take this earliest opportunity to clearly say, without fear of contradiction, that the heart is not a pump. That's all. It's not. The heart is not a pump. So the position of mainstream science is the heart functions as a muscular autonomous pump. We said it's not autonomous, it depends on the brain. That maintains continuous blood flow circulation throughout the body, and it powers the cardiovascular system by drawing in or deoxygenator. So the blood that returns to the heart is called deoxygenated, meaning it doesn't have oxygen. It is not true it has some oxygen. Sawa sawa. It has some oxygen. Sawa sawa. So wherever it flows, it's only that the proportion of oxygen is reduced as it is coming back from the rest of the body. But it's not a pump. Now look at this. This is what we call a water pump. So, it's called a water pump. Now, those people who did physics, there was a topic in physics in Form 2 called fluid flow. Do you remember? Kuna watu walifanya physics? Yeah, we will come to revisit this topic. Now, for this pump to be able to push water through all this network of pipes, I want you to know that the energy contained in this motor should be proportional to the distance and also the complexity, because resistance increases with what we call impedance. This means if you bend the pipe, you increase resistance. Are we together? We cannot also assure you that these pipes have what we call, have been streamlined. Streamlined, kumaanisha they are smooth to reduce what? Friction. And because of that friction, the energy contained in this motor has to be enough to overcome all those factors. Because this is not an ideal pump. It's not perfect. Why? We have certain laws in nature that will hinder this water to flow. And one of the laws that will be affected is Newton's first law of motion, which says if you trigger an object to start moving, it will continue moving until it will continue moving continuously or eternally, unless there is a force acting against. So we have so many forces acting against this water. And therefore, the energy of this pump must be enough, especially at the generation point, to allow this water to maneuver through all this network. Now, I'll tell you something. If this energy is adequate and it pushes water through this pipe is going to straighten. Now it is bent, isn't it? Tuko pamoja? Si imepinda. Uki-increase power, the pipe is going to become straight. Usisahau hiyo, because that is an important point. So when we come to the heart, I'll ask you why the blood vessels are twisting and yet blood is still flowing. And you are saying the heart is a pump? Okay. Now, these are the characteristics or the properties of a pump. For every pump, we have what we call the best efficiency point, where the pump is producing the maximum efficiency, meaning it's going to make all the water flow to wherever point it is needed. And some of the characteristics of the pump are the horsepower. The horsepower of the pump must be high. Okay? It must be equal to the load, the amount of work to be done. And then that will also dictate the speed. So if the motor or the pump has adequate energy, enough, and then it is rolling with speed, now we expect the force of the water at the starting point By the time you get to the last pipe, because there will be diminishing energy, you are likely to help the pipe that is in the farthest end to supply water because of the energy. But the energy continues to decrease. But do you know the heart works opposite? You could think that somebody with high blood pressure is going to be more efficient than somebody with low blood pressure. What do you think? Mtu ambaye ako blood pressure iko chini na yule ambaye iko juu, ni wapi itafanya kazi mzuri? Low blood pressure. So it goes contrary to the pump, to the horsepower. And I want you to work towards having a blood pressure of less than 100, the systole, the upper number, to be less than 100. And you cannot achieve that if you're not exercising. Okay? I also told you to work for a heart rate which is less than 60. You may not achieve that if you're not exercising. So, then you cannot say that the heart is a pump. It is more efficient when it's working with less energy. Sawa sawa. Go to point number 2, constant and laminar flow. To achieve what we call smooth flow, you must make sure the pipes are all straight. And when you want to bend them, please do not bend them sharply. You start by turning slowly, okay, to create what we call the smooth flow, the streamline. Are we together? But what do you tell me? Your heart is here, but there's a blood vessel. Once it gets out of the heart, it comes down. Is that favoring a pump or working against it? Yes, exactly. And there are so many blood vessels in your body that are twisted. Some of them, okay? So that does not favor the theory of a pump. Now go to the other point. You have to locate the pump at the lowest gravity and in the deepest pool. Sasa unataka kusupply the entire body. The best position for the heart would have been the legs. Tuko pamoja? Kwa sababu ukiweka hapa karibu, unajua there are so small blood vessels around this area. And you put small blood vessels, especially those ones in the head, near the pump, what will happen? Huh? Kuna kitu umesema kizuri sana. Burst. Exactly. Sawa sawa. But do you know we have so many small blood vessels here in the head, close to the pump? So that is why we do not believe in the theory of a pump. We need, ukienda kwa nini? Kuweka pump ya maji. Na mito yote inakuanga chini, si ndio? So you have to look for an area where you have the largest what? Pool of blood. So we have to wait for the blood to flow downwards so that God should have placed, if the heart was a pump, in the legs, because it will allow blood to flow by gravity. Kwa pamoja. Shida ya nini? Unaona sina adapter ya hii. Nilisahau. Kuna mtu anaweza pata. Sina, lakini tutaendelea tu hii. Okay? So we are saying the heart should have been located where? At the point where we can have a pool of blood. So blood flows by gravity. Okay? So it should not have been located here. So that is why we are saying that you cannot convince me, now that I'm reasoning logically, that the heart is a pump. Okay? Nilikuwa nimesahau ya kwamba. Okay. The other thing is on the issue of the diameter of the blood vessels. Are we together? The diameter of, when you are arranging pipes in a pump system, do you start with the small diameter vessels or pipes or the large diameter? Exactly, the large diameter. So, and you continue decreasing. As you go up, you decrease the diameter. But something is different in the heart area. Some vessels are narrow, and yet they are close to the pump. Close to the pump. The reason why they do not burst is because the heart is not a pump. It's not a pump. So. And what we know is that most of the information we have on treatment of the heart, when it has failed, it is based on increasing the energy of the pump, okay? And for that reason, if that is the ideology, then there will be so many side effects. That is why we do not have ideal treatment for heart failure. And if we do not have treatment for heart failure, then the most important advice I can give, please protect your heart, maintain your heart, ensure you do the things we are going to mention later that are necessary for the health of your heart. Hii mambo huwa tunasema kunywa maji, fanya mazoezi, usikasirike. The heart is emotional. Sasa, the heart is emotional. When you get angry, you are damaging your heart. Stress inaharibu nini? Wale watu wamekataa kulala, you are transnighting. Unataka nini? Sijui, unatafuta pesa sana. So you don't sleep. And if you don't sleep, what happens? You're weakening your heart. You won't go far. Are we together? Wale watu wanapenda uongo. Something else that the heart hates is falsehoods. Na unajijua? Unaharibu nini? I will tell you how falsehoods destroy the heart. In US, because we don't do it in Kenya, there's something we call a lie detector. Have you heard of a lie detector? So you have been arrested on criminality. So what happens? DCI akikushika, utashangaa, hawa watu wamekuwa wazuri namna gani? Unapatiwa story, hata unapelekwa lunch, sijui, sasa unapelekwa huko. So mtu unaona, nimeshikwa ama kwa sababu mtu anakwambia hata unataka nini. Then they take your blood pressure. Si umetulia, si umetosheka, si umeridhika. They take your blood pressure and heart rate. Sasa alafu baadaye sura inabadilika after 3 days. Si umetuzwa vizuri, unaambiwa utalala wapi. Kwanza huwa unaingizwa rooms tofauti, uchague mahali pa kula. Okay? There are some ladies wanakuanga huko. Hata kupitisha through some of the rooms. Alafu akuonyeshe msichana fulani kama yeye ni mwanaume. akwambie umemwonaje huyo? Nikulete. Unajua you're supposed to be free. Kisema hakuna shida. So unatulia. Then when you are at maximum rest, they take your blood pressure and they take your heart rate. Wewe goja after 3 days. Utalia. Alafu si wanajua, they have the story. Okay? So unapelekwa kitu inaitwa interrogation. Kwa interrogation, wakati wamekuuliza swali, the moment you start answering that question, they take your blood pressure again and your heart rate. Wanakuta imepanda. Heart rate imepanda. Do you know what they are doing? Wanasema huyu jamaa anaongea huo. Okay? It cannot be when you are at rest, your blood pressure is low and your heart rate is. Lakini umeulizwa maswali, pressure imefanya nini? So here they do that simple one. In US, they have to fix electrodes around your head and your heart. Then they ask you the questions. Na wanaangalia kwa screen vile brainwaves zina behave. Hebu acha kuongea huko. Stop speaking. Like, tell us the truth. And they'll ask the same question, even up to 40 times. Nakwambia utapatikana. So the principle they are employing here is they know very well that the heart is damaged by forceps. And how we know it is damaged is because your heart rate is going to change and your blood pressure is going to change. Now, let's see another property of a pump. So we've talked about the large diameter pipes. Now, we've talked of, let's mention here. If you want the pump to be effective, you have to eliminate what we call throttling. This means avoid any narrow parts. The pipe should be, any single pipe should have the same diameter all through until the end. So if you put a bottleneck, if you narrow it, it is going to affect the blood flow. But let me tell you, for blood vessels in the body, you will have all those hindrances. There are twists, there are valves, and that is why I'm saying that does not work with a pump. Then you have other things like you have to use high efficiency motor fuel energy. The heart does not need a lot of energy. When you're fasting, we could assume you don't have energy, and therefore your heart is supposed to fail when you're fast. But do you know you can fast up to 40 days, and your heart will still continue to pump? It may not work that way with a pump. It constantly needs energy. Then maintenance, it's very high for a pump. Then you have to minimize the sharp bends, the elbows, restrictions. But for the heart, twisting starts immediately. The blood is coming up. So this will not work like upper. Then this small surface area we talked about is not enough to pump blood to, do you know how many kilometers we are talking about? Kilometers of blood, kilometers of vessels, okay? That can go around the Earth's circumference twice and a half. So there's another mechanism. Now I want you to see this. This blood vessel is called the inferior vena cava. it pulls all the blood that comes from the level of the diaphragm, the chest, downwards. All that blood will end up entering where? Here. Then all the blood that comes from the head will come through this vessel. Interestingly, and this you may not have discovered, God has designed that that vessel coming from upwards and this one have to meet. When they meet, what do you think will happen in this right atrium? Pepo mbili zikikutana hivi huwa zinatengeneza nini? Huwa zinatengeneza nini? Turbulence. Now, I'll tell you something later about the magic of a turbulence. It creates enough energy to lift the Airbus 380. It carries up to 600 passengers. Okay? So that is why hiyo topic mulifanya form 2 ya fluid flow mkasahau, mulifanya makosa sana. Because that is where you are taught what we call the Bernoulli's. Bernoulli's what? Principle. Now, since you completed the form 2 topic, you've not applied it. Why? Na hiyo iko na pesa sana. Ukitoka hapa, you need to apply those things. Okay? Something else. Look at the alignment of the heart. It is tilted, and there's a reason for that. So if it is tilted towards this direction, the vessels that are coming out of the heart bend towards this direction because of a physical principle. A principle in physics we call the drag. Sasa, what do you mean by a drag? Wacha nikuonyeshe. Ulikuwa unatembea kwa barabara. Tuko pamoja? Lori kubwa ikaja ikapita karibu na wewe. Which direction do you go? Unaona watu walitupa hiyo physics. Which direction do you go? Nisaidie na hiki kitabu. Angalia hapa vizuri sana. So I'll do some simple demonstration. So I have these two papers. So assuming these papers were apart like this, what's happening? They come together, isn't it? What principle is that? Hiyo mulisahau. Sawa sawa. So God has applied the same physical laws in what we call fluid flow. And here we are considering blood. Very interesting ones. Nitawaambia. Alafu usisahau this one. If the heart was a pump, anytime it pumps blood, this vessel called the aorta should straighten. But interestingly, when blood is flowing out, instead of the aorta straightening, it bends. And that is how the heart was formed in the baby. When the heart started to pump, using these physical laws, the laws themselves, they were making the heart. They were constructing the heart. Okay, interesting, huh? Hey, God is a scientist. God is a scientist. Here, Bernoulli's principle is not supposed to be called Bernoulli's principle. It's supposed to be called God's principle. Or you think it's Bernoulli who discovered it? He only reported. Okay, what is this? These are the facts I was telling you. Now, the length of the blood, the distance covered by the blood vessels is 100,000 kilometers. So this means if they were joined end to end, they will go around the equator. How many times? 2.5 times. Huh? So you don't want to tell me that an organ the size of your fist is able to project blood to go this amount of distance. That is not possible. And by the way, the blood vessels are not the only network of vessels in the blood. We also have another extensive system called the lymphatic system that depends on the heart for circulation. Now, these are the chambers of the heart. So we have the left ventricle, the right ventricle, we have the right atrium, we have the left atrium. Now, there are impedances here, valves. An ideal pump, you would not want to place obstructions. But a heart has a valve that separates the left atrium to the left ventricle. And there's also another valve where we have the aorta, and the same case applies to the largest blood vessel in your body. You can put your 2 fingers in. Which blood vessel is that? What is the name of that blood vessel? You can comfortably insert your 2 fingers. So it is 4 centimeters wide. It's called the aorta. And when the heart pumps blood, instead of this blood vessel straightening in an ideal pump, it bends. Okay? And something else you've never been known, or you've not known, is what we call the efficiency of the heart. The efficiency of what we call the ejection fraction. What your heart is able to pump in a single beat. Do you know your heart works at 50% efficiency? Now, if your pump was working at 50% efficiency, it simply means it is pumping half of the load it is supposed to pump. Now, would you say that that is an efficient pump? 50%? Huh? Uko kwa borderline. Let me tell you, even if your heart is pumping at 40 to 50%, it is still functioning normal. So with me here, I have some water. Are we together? This water is 70 ml. This is the equivalent to the amount of blood your heart pumps in a single beat. Ni kidogo sana. Hebu wapatie kwa sababu maybe waguse wasikie uzito niambie. Is that amount of water or blood, because it is equivalent to what I have placed in that bottle? Do you think it is adequate to fill 100,000 kilometers of blood vessel network? Unless we have another mechanism different from a pump. Hey, wale wameona hiyo damu, unaona ina make sense? That is the much your heart can pump in a single beat to supply blood vessels that can go around the equator of the earth 2 times and a half. So that is why I want to teach another principle. Na mimi siwezi nikawakufunza kama hujibu maswali. The first question I'm going to pose to you is, what is this? Huh? Now, this is what we call a whirlwind. This is an eddy pool. What is the mechanism or what is the principle of the operation of this whirlwind? The energy contained at the center here, my friend, here. And you know, this is the way it works. God will make it that there will be wind coming from this direction, and they meet here. So the pressure here will be low, as in contrast to the pressure outside. So there's something that is behaving like a vacuum. Now, the air streams coming to this point appear to have, it's like they are being sanctioned. Okay? So the speed of the airstream, air currents in the middle, it's very high. Very high. But then the pressure is low. So the same mechanism can be used to make an aeroplane to lift up from the ground, even if it is carrying tons and tons of weight. Okay? You could have seen the same thing in what we call hurricanes or tornadoes or in storms. And every hurricane has what we call an eye. Na wakati tulikuwa tunaenda kutembea karibu na mito, there was an area where there was swelling of water. Na inaenda kwa ikikaribia hapo. Okay? So we used to avoid such places. So people who have been wrecked in the sea, mulikuwa na boti yenu ama whatever, mukawa hapa. This is where you don't want to go. Wewe ukienda hapo umeisha. But do you know it drags the vessels towards this area? Zinavurutwa zote. And this is how people have perished in what we call hurricanes and storms. So when they are measuring the speed of the hurricane, they actually measure this area. Are you together? So they use what we call the SS scale, the triple S system of measuring. Now, there is one instance in the Bible where one of the prophets was carried up using what we call the Bernoulli's principle, the whirlwind. Do you know that prophet? Huh? You don't know him, huh? Elijah. Okay. So who is this? Elisha. So he was waiting by, and he saw. We need to address that, isn't it? He saw Elijah being lifted up in a whirlwind. So how do you create this kind of a turbulence or a sanction force to cause objects to move up? And the same principle is found in the heart. Now listen carefully. Now, to create what we call a turbulent flow, because that is what the eye of the hurricane or the center of the whirlwind is, you must overcome the fluid viscosity and induce what we call chaotic or swirling eddies. Now, this is how to achieve that. You must ensure that you increase the fluid's velocity. So that is why blood has to beat from all directions, and as it comes near the heart, the blood vessels are wide. Okay? So the same applies in a river. Where do you expect the speed of the river to be high? Is it upstream or downstream? Downstream, yeah? Yeah, when you have so many vessels or many tributaries that are coming to that river, and then the volume increases. So the same applies to the heart. So when blood is coming back to the heart, we have large blood vessels. So we have to increase the fluid's velocity, so the speed of the fluid increases, and then you have to use a wider channel. So the blood vessels of the heart will be wider as they are coming in. We talked about the inferior vena cava. And then you have introducing physical body in the fluids part. So if you want to ensure you make that eddy current or whirlwind, you block the movement of the fluid. So when the blood is coming from the pulmonary vein, inferior vena cava, superior, it is blocked by valves. It doesn't enter immediately. Okay, so you block it. Then there's an abrupt change of direction. So as the vessels are coming from the other areas of the body, they twist near the heart. So that is a way of creating some sort of energy we are going to discuss. Abrupt change of direction, and then the surface is uneven. See the shape of the heart, okay? It is rugged, and that makes the surface uneven. Then there is what we call Venturi effect. Nani anajua ile carburetor ya gari vile inakaa? Ukitaka kuchoma petrol vizuri, there is a receptacle of that carburetor, but as it goes towards where it ejects the air and also receives the petrol or the fuel, it is narrow. Okay, that is what we call Venturi effect. And that is what happens to the heart. Blood is coming, then a valve opens and leaves a very narrow passage. That's a Venturi effect. And then you have the vacuum effect. Now, when the fluid comes and it is let out by the valve, when it is coming out, it creates a vacuum, which continues to suck more blood, and the process continues. And then you have the thermal effect. The thermal effect, this is what we mean. When blood is coming from all parts of the body, as it goes back to the heart, it has lost temperature. So blood that is coming from the heart to the rest of the body is warmer than the blood that is coming from other parts of the body too. So it is cooler. When it is cooler and it is coming back to the heart, when it enters the heart, it is going to have more suction force. It has more suction force because it's cooler. Okay? It is a principle that can only be explained by the Bernoulli's principle. So this is what we are saying. If you sum up the energy here, it will be equals to the energy here. Okay? Any flowing fluid has what we call kinetic energy. Okay? But do not forget, when the fluid is static, it has potential energy. But we also know we have pressure that is acting from the outside. You are living in an atmosphere, and there is atmospheric pressure pressing upon you. So Bernoulli's principle or equation is a sum of all those energies, the atmospheric, the kinetic, and the potential energy. So when you combine all the three, the answer you get is a constant. And that pressure there would be equal to this pressure here. This is what I mean. If you use this principle, it simply means the way the fluid is flowing when the heart has started to pump, let's use that word, that speed of the fluid, it will be the same at any point in the body, as long as the network of blood vessels is closed and no blood is leaking anyway. So that is why, if I listen at your heart pumping and I hold your pulse on the heart, the time your heart is pumping should be the same time I'm going to feel your. And if I hold your pulse in the leg, as your heart pumps, I can hear that pulse in there, it doesn't matter whether it's here, the distance does not matter. If your heart pumps, then I should hear the pulse at the same time, any part of your body. If I do not hear it, means you have a problem with your heart. And we have seen that one among people who have high blood pressure, who have conditions to do with some blocks in their heart. Okay? That is not a pump. Why? Unajua mtu akifungulia pump kule, anaitana, hey, huko, maji imefika. Haijafika. Zini kweli? But it is not so with the heart. If your heart beats here, I'm supposed to hear your pulse here. That works with this principle. And that is why we are saying that the heart is not a pump. Okay? And of course, I have explained things to do with the Bernoulli's principle. Okay? There must be a steady frictionless flow. And then something else. The pressure, the density at any given point, the velocity, the pressure, the density of that fluid will be the same. Hiyo ndio sababu moyo wako ukipigia hapa, I only need to press this pulse we call the radial pulse. It should be happening at the same time. Tuko pamoja? Kwa hivyo, the mechanism by which the heart causes blood to flow is not the pumping action. It is called the vortex action. Hii hujaisikia. Si ni kweli? It is called the vortex. Vortex ni hiyo whirlwind. Tumesema. That's how. And how does the vortex work? Okay? The vortex shedding or shedding of energy. So when a fluid, wind or water flows around a rigid cylindrical conical structure, it is going to create an alternating low pressure swirls of air or water in its wake. And these cyclical pressure imbalances exert a lifting force on the object. Ya kwamba, when the blood comes to the heart, it is going to swell. That is why it was blocked. Once it starts to swell, it is creating energy. And therefore, anything that is above, if it finds an exit, when it's moving in that movement, it is going to move. It will not depend on the power of the mass of the heart. It will just move. Na hivyo ndivyo ndege zimetengenezwa. Ushaijiuliza ni kwa nini ndege na ni nzito na inapanda? Ushaijiuliza? The same principle. Sawa sawa. Kwa hivyo ukiona ndege ikicharge, the engines have what we call a propeller. Unaona hizi vitu unaona hapa chini ya mabawa, eh? Okay? So it has to beat the air. What is it doing? It is pushing the air away, isn't it? So there will be a vacuum on top of it. So that will make it easier to move up than to remain downward, because there will be a lot of pressure downwards. Eh? Imagine that's the principle that makes airplanes to go up. Inaaminika ama haiaminiki, the same principle is used in the heart. Okay? So there's something else we call resonance. And what is this? As the fluid speed increases. So as the fluid swells and the speed increases, the frequency of the shared vortices increases. When this frequency matches the natural structural frequency of the device, the column or the fluid begins to oscillate vigorously perpendicular to the flow direction. So let me make it simple for you. Wakati damu imefungiwa, then opened and then moves in a very fast direction, the reaction is always perpendicular. Tuko pamoja? The vessels or the pipes are horizontal, but the reaction is, that is why if I place my finger on top of that blood vessel, ninasikia? Ninagongwa hivi ama hivi? Si huwa inagonga hivi? Yeah, it's vertical. Tuko pamoja? So that is why, because this is a closed system, wewe wekelea mahali popote utasikia hiyo pass. Wekelea kidole. Ni hapa, ni hapa, ni hapa, ni hapa. Sasa ni kwa mguu. The pass should come at the same time as the heart is beating. See, that is interesting. It is also wonderful, isn't it? These are amazing things that we learn from physics. Lakini unajua nyinyi mlikataa physics, ukafanya biology peke yake. So the mechanical energy from these oscillations is then harnessed at the base of the structure. Base of the structure. This is the heart, using an alternator system. So we do not have something to convert the energy in ourselves. So what happens in the heart? It taps that energy at a place we call the sinoatrial node. That is why where that energy is tapped. And when it is tapped, it is spread all over the heart muscle. Hiyo ndio ukienda kule unawekewa vitu huku, inatap kitu inaitwa the conduction system of the heart. Sasa unaambiwa it is an electrical conduction system. Do you know where that energy comes from? From the blood, from this vortex. So this is how wonderful God is. Did you believe that you could use a fluid to create energy? Kwani Kenya Power inatoa energy wapi? What we call hydroelectric power. Inatoka wapi? The swallowing system. Si kuna vitu inaitwa turbines. We do not know. Let me tell you something. Kuna mtu anaitwa Faraday, Michael Faraday. This guy is said to have invented what? Lakini kuna mwingine anaitwa Tesla, the inventor of magnetism. So the question is, who between Faraday and Tesla was first? Because motion can create a current. Sawa. Tuko pamoja? Lakini current can also create motion. You can use power to move a motor. Okay? But you can use a motor to make. So, who was first? So what we are seeing here, the secret of energy is in motion. Nyinyi watu, ebu tembeeni. Just move. If you do not know anything else to do, move. Because the secret of life energy is in motion. This blood is generating energy in the heart simply because it is moving. So that is why if you don't exercise, all sorts of diseases will come. Other DVT, yani clots of blood. You have heart failure, you have diabetes, hypertension, asthma. Shida nyingi sana. Simply because you have refused to do what? Okay? So please, go back to your physics. Soma nini? The Faraday's law. Okay? Sawa. Na usome ile nyingine ambayo inaitwaje? There is that law that gives the relationship between motion and electric current. It's called the law of induction of energy. Something. Siiko. And it's the one that helps us to do what? To create a motor. The motor is built on what we call the induction system. Sawa. Na kuna motors kwingi munatumia. So when you when you move a wire that is coiled across a magnetic field, it is going to generate electric current. So the same principle is used at Kindaluma and the other dams where? Yeah. So the injustice you can do to your heart is to damage the blood supply. And one of the areas that are damaged are the small blood vessels that supply your heart muscle. They are called the microvessels, okay? In fact, most heart attacks start with damage to these vessels. If you have a diabetes, it starts by damaging the small blood vessels. And that is the reason why so many people with diabetes have challenges with, they have what we call heart failure and myocardial infarction because of that, or heart attacks, okay? So high blood sugars will damage those vessels, okay? They will cause what we call inflammation. Those people who love sugar and they love fatty or fried, okay, food items, you are likely to damage your muscle. Now, I was watching football when I was addicted to football in 2003, June 26th, when I saw firsthand this. Which team is this? The one that wears? Well, nani anasema Senegal? So when I witnessed June 26th, 2003, during the 73rd minute, Cameroon was playing Colombia for the Confederations Cup in France. And they were in the semifinals when Marc-Vivien Foé collapsed. For the first time, I witnessed death in the pitch. Okay? And then they were taking him. Is he dead or alive at this point? What do you think? Does he look dead or alive at this point? Are you sure? He appears unconscious. What if I showed you that? This is in the field. So when they are taking him out, he is dead. But what caused his death? Before all players go into the field, they have to be assessed by a cardiovascular doctor. And that is routine. Meaning, Marc-Vivien Foé has been assessed and found fit to play. Then what happened? In the 73rd minute, he collapses and he died. By the way, Cameroon continued to play even after his death, and they went to the finals, okay? But they were beaten by France in the finals. But there was a player for France called Thierry Henry. He's a very respectful guy. He said, we are only going to score. It was a super team, France. But he said, for the memory or for the respect of Marc-Vivien, we are only going to score one goal. And they scored only one. And they said, we are going to score it at the last minute. And they scored it at the last. So would you say that match was fixed or? Hiyo mechi ilikuwa genuine? Ati? They did not want to beat them for more than one goal. Okay? So the theory of a heart attack is based on formation of a thrombus. But then we have come to know later that this is not actually the main cause of a heart attack. The main cause is these three items. Inability of your heart to rest. Inability of your heart to do what? To rest. And your heart rests between the beats. So people are cheering at you. You are at the point of attacking and you are almost missing and people are cheering and you have this adrenaline shooting. So your heart is working more than normal because you want to have this goal in. So you develop a complication as a result of the demands are so much more than the heart is able to provide. And that is what made Mark Vivian to do what? To collapse, okay? Because of the loss of that parasympathetic nervous tone. So if you get tired and you're running, you stop. But please note, the heart does not stop. It will continue to beat. If it continues to beat, you either stop and give it some rest and recovery. But if you cannot stop, you're going to have a heart attack because of lactic acid buildup. Okay, that was nice. So what are the causes of heart disease? These are all the causes. And I talked about panic, anger, falsehood, okay? Stress, depression, anxiety, sedentary lifestyle, people who don't exercise, a full stomach, mesikia, watu wakula kushiba, full stomach, toxins such as drugs, radiation, lack of water, dehydration, okay? Suffocation, lack of oxygen, malnutrition, sleep deprivation. If you don't have adequate sleep, you're damaging your heart. Those who do not up, there are some people here who do not step on bare feet on the ground. And that's a problem. If we want to assess a good function of your heart, we have to connect it to the earth. So please, can you help yourself? Remove your shoes, step on the grass, okay? And then discerning those people who do not sun or sunbathe. Hard music is very bad for the heart. Those who are used to rock music, loud music, so bad for the heart. And too much sex for men, okay? You're going to destroy your heart with too much sex. You witnessed a senior politician, 2 senior politicians die at the very act, okay? And you need to be careful. So, in fact, you are wasting your energy. So, that is why I do not get the sense a man is going to a prostitute and pay. What are you paying for? You are paying for your death. It doesn't make sense at all. So toxins. So I'll show you the last item on toxins. Now, look at this.
When a person takes the first puff of a cigarette, the moment smoke enters toxic rushes inside. Smoke burns the throat, destroying protective cells in seconds. Inside your lungs, sticky black tar settles with every breath, coating the airways thicker and thicker. Carbon monoxide replaces oxygen in your lungs, slowly suffocating your body from inside. Your heart is forced to beat faster and harder just to push low oxygen blood through your body. Nicotine hits the brain in seconds, creating instant addiction habits. The immune system becomes weaker and slower, making infections more likely. Smoking destroys collagen in the skin, causing early aging, wrinkles, and dullness. Blood flow weakens across the body, leading to low stamina and sexual problems. Smoking dramatically increases the risk of lung cancer, mouth cancer, and death strokes. Toxins fill the blood, forcing kidneys to work under extreme pressure. Bone repair slows, joints weaken, and reproductive cells get damaged, reducing fertility in both men and women.
Wonderful. Okay, can stop. Nice. We've come to the end of any question.